People first noticed the silence before they understood the loss. It wasn't dramatic. No collapse. No blackout. No sudden fear. Just a moment when thought stopped narrating itself. A woman in Lisbon was mid-sentence when it happened. Her mouth kept moving, finishing the phrase smoothly. But inside her head there was nothing guiding it. No intention. No commentary. The words arrived fully formed, as if spoken by someone else using her voice. A man driving outside Phoenix adjusted the radio, checked his mirrors, and changed lanes perfectly, without once thinking about doing it. Later he would say the road felt flatter than usual. Quieter. Like driving through a photograph. Across the world, the same experience unfolded. People were awake. Responsive. Functional. But the inner voice, the constant invisible proof of being oneself, had gone silent. The first reports described it as dissociation. Burnout. Anxiety. Doctors reassured patients. Psychologists prescribed rest. Neurologists found nothing wrong. Until the duration became impossible to ignore. 3 minutes. Always 3. Every episode began abruptly and ended cleanly, as if switched off and back on again. No gradual fade. No lingering effects. Thought returned fully intact, bringing with it a sudden overwhelming realization. I was gone. Surveillance footage added a deeper unease. People continued to behave normally during the silent interval. They answered questions, laughed at jokes. Typed messages, even made decisions. But something subtle had changed. When reviewed frame by frame, their eyes looked wrong. Not unfocused. Not empty. Just uninhabited. Like a room with the lights on and no one home. The phenomenon escalated quietly. At first, episodes were isolated, then clustered, then synchronized. In a Tokyo office tower, 11 employees experienced the silence simultaneously at 10:42 a.m. Meetings continued without interruption. A presentation concluded on time. Notes were taken, tasks assigned. Later, none of them remembered thinking during those 3 minutes. EEG scans provided the first undeniable proof. During the silent interval, higher-order brain activity flattened. Not vanished, suppressed. Decision-making centers dimmed. Narrative processing dropped to near zero. And yet, motor function, language, memory recall all remained active. The brain was running, but consciousness had been muted. Researchers struggled to name it. Media settled on a phrase that felt uncomfortably accurate: the awareness gap. As data accumulated, patterns emerged. The 3-minute silence correlated precisely with earlier anomalies. 3 minutes equaled 3 cycles of the missing minute. The same low-frequency signal appeared faintly in background recordings, buried beneath environmental noise, almost identical to the broadcast once associated with a city that vanished when observed. And in a small subset of subjects, something else appeared. Memory fragments. A woman in Reykjavik reported standing somewhere vast and dim, aware of others around her, but unable to see them clearly. A graduate student in Nairobi described the sensation of being paused, as if waiting in line without knowing for what. A child in Vancouver asked his father why the world had buffered. The most disturbing accounts came from those who shouldn't have remembered anything at all. They spoke of pressure. Of presence. Of being evaluated. One subject, a mathematician under controlled observation, regained consciousness mid-sentence and immediately began crying. When asked why, he said only one thing before refusing further interviews: I could feel it deciding whether to give me back. That was when the hypothesis shifted. Until then, researchers believed reality was breaking. Now, a different idea took hold. Thought reality was stabilizing. The world they proposed was not malfunctioning. It was responding. Space had learned to hide. Time had learned to buffer. And now, when neither was sufficient, the system turned to the last remaining variable: the observer, consciousness itself. The theory was simple and terrifying. Conscious awareness interfered with the structure of reality. Observation altered outcomes. Self-reflection introduced instability. A universe capable of being examined too closely could not maintain coherence indefinitely. So the system, whatever governed the deep mechanics of existence, had implemented a safeguard. When awareness reached a critical threshold, it was temporarily disabled. Not destroyed, muted. 3 minutes was the minimum interval required to rebalance. To adjust. To continue running. This explained everything. Why bodies kept functioning. Why memories didn't form. Why the silence felt neutral rather than painful. And why no one remembered what happened inside the gap. Because no one was there to remember it. Then came the recordings that should not have existed. In a research lab monitoring a group of volunteers, an error caused a high-resolution audio channel to remain active during a synchronized awareness gap. The room appeared normal. Subjects sat still. Machines hummed. But beneath the hum, something else emerged. A rhythm, not speech, not music, a structured cadence, layered and precise, as if many signals were aligning. When slowed and isolated, the sound revealed patterns, intervals matching neurosuppression, transitions aligning with recovery, and threaded through it all, a recurring tonal marker. 3 pulses. Pause. 3 pulses. Pause. Embedded deep within the waveform was a fragment of modulated data, not language but intent. When translated into the simplest possible form, the system rendered a single phrase, observer isolated. The realization fractured what remained of consensus. If consciousness could be turned off, it could be turned off again, and again, and longer. Soon after, the gaps began to vary. A man in Buenos Aires lost 5 minutes. A woman in Prague lost 10. Their bodies functioned flawlessly. They returned confused, distressed, but intact. Others did not return at all. Not immediately. In one documented case, a subject remained in the silent state for over 30 minutes. He continued responding to stimuli, but when awareness finally resumed, he screamed uncontrollably and collapsed. His last coherent sentence was recorded by a nurse leaning close enough to hear his whisper. "It saw too much of me." After that, the data stopped being shared. Governments intervened. Research was classified. Terms like consciousness suppression vanished from public discourse. Official explanations blamed stress, mass dissociation, digital overload. But the gaps continued. Subtle. Selective. Almost careful. As if the system had learned restraint. Those who began actively studying the phenomenon experienced it more often. Researchers reported longer silences. Journalists lost time mid-interview. Analysts reviewing the data noticed entire sections of their work completed without memory of doing it. Awareness itself had become a risk factor. One final artifact circulated briefly before being erased. A private recording from an EEG lab captured milliseconds before a subject entered the gap. As higher brain activity flattened, a spike appeared, not in the subject's brain, but in the surrounding electromagnetic field. Something responded. The spike resolved into a clean, unmistakable pattern. A handshake, then silence. The recording ended with a timestamp discrepancy. The system clock had advanced 3 minutes, but the metadata claimed only 1 second had passed. No explanation was ever offered. The last public report included a single warning. Hidden deep in the file structure, persistent self-observation may result in permanent isolation. After that, the world adjusted. People stopped talking about the gaps. Experiences faded into private discomfort. Life continued, largely unchanged. And perhaps that was the most unsettling part. The system didn't need compliance. It only needed you to keep functioning. On quiet nights, some people still notice it. A pause before thought resumes. A blank space between one idea and the next. A fleeting sense that awareness is something lent, not owned. Something granted conditionally. And occasionally, very occasionally, someone becomes aware of the silence while it is happening. In those rare moments, there is no fear, only the sense of being very small. And very visible, as if something vast is watching from just outside the frame of thought itself, ready to mute the signal again, should the observer begin to look too closely.